there, everybody. This is SXE Blues, and sticking with my Doctor Who Prelude to Series 6 theme, if you recall in the video that I uploaded just previous to the broken up into 3 parts fond remembrances of the 11 incarnations of the Doctor, I mentioned the second podcast I had in mind to do would be focusing more so on the Doctor's companions throughout the history of the series, going all the way back to the beginning as well. And so this is going to be, I may have to break this into multiple parts as well, but effectively this is overarching part 2 of that, fond looking back. So once again, if you want to jump into my own little pseudo TARDIS, and we'll go on a journey back in time and see the companions of the Doctor all the way back to the beginning. So this, of course, we have to mention the first 3 official companions. In fact, the very first one we ever meet is Susan Foreman, who at the time we are just given the idea that she is a sort of, odd student. There are certain things that subjects she excels in, and then there are things that she is so completely unattuned to and completely mind-bafflingly out of sync with, that this prompts her 2 teachers, Ian Chesterton and Barbara Wright, to be really curious about her and follow her home one day, or I shall say one night, and they stumble across the fact that her grandfather, her seeming, caregiver, is this ornery old man who ends up being the Doctor. And so immediately we have a familial connection with the Doctor. It's the Doctor's granddaughter. Not, in fact, Susan Foreman, maybe not even Susan, but this is what we'll come to know her as. So right away, we're whisked off on a magic journey in this tiny little police box outside, that inside is a world of wonders, and not only that, but it can travel all through space and all through time, and, so that's where it really begins. Ian and Barbara show time and time again to be inquisitive, and in their first few adventures, they kind of get just as testy back to the Doctor as he is to them, and the Doctor's inquisitive nature seemingly always, getting them into trouble and trapping them in their first adventure with the Daleks and so forth. But and even though I will not be going through every companion and listing when they first showed up and when they eventually left, I have been privy to the final stories of both Susan and Ian and Barbara. Susan's departure comes in the Dalek invasion of Earth, and I referenced this in my look at the 11 Doctors. The first Doctor giving a heartfelt speech after locking his granddaughter out of the TARDIS and sending her off to become a woman of her own and by her own means. And of course, that's a great touching moment, and I can see why, even back then, sometimes Doctor Who in the older series was not as emotive and affirming as the more current series are. But I have read that there were people that saw, Susan was leaving, and this kind of, bummed them out the same way when, Rose left in the modern series and so forth. Ian and Barbara ended up leaving in the episode The Chase, which afforded them a Dalek time machine that they just decided to take advantage of, and the Doctor was really not happy about it. In the behind-the-scenes stuff, there's some talk that, William Hartnell, the first Doctor actor, when he has to say goodbye to them, he comes across as being really angered about it in the portrayal, but it's potentially that the actor himself was also upset with the leaving actors, the actor and actress playing Ian and Barbara. Uh, so, moving on to the second Doctor's most notable companions for me, based on the limited amount of original series Doctor Who I've been able to see. The first I should mention is Jamie, and of course the little Scottish lad. There are many times where his quips and the repartee between him and the second Doctor just are classic to me. It's almost like they rib on each other, but in an affectionate way, And one of the more notable things that I want to mention with Jamie, actually, and this is no disservice to the actor who played him, and I'm going to be really not remembering all the actor names, just a warning for now, but there's a scene in, I believe it's The Mind Robber. Yeah, that's what it is. And where, because, and I just read this recently, as a matter of fact, there was a reason that the actor who played Jamie could not partake in the story through a couple of the episodes. I think it was down to illness or something to that effect. And so, written into the story, in this surreal world the Mind Robber takes place in, there's this whole little gimmick where you get turned into a cardboard cutout and your face is removed, and it's left to the Doctor to pick the eyes and the nose and the mouth and remake you temporarily. And this ends up backfiring because the Doctor gets it wrong. And in this instance, Jamie is then portrayed by a guest actor, for all intents and purposes, the same person, but with a different face. I guess that would probably mark the first time in Doctor Who history where it's a companion with a different face being the same person, rather than the Doctor. But I just always thought this was really weird, and it caught me off guard when I first watched The Mind Robber. And but that's funny. Another companion, and this touches back to something I mentioned in the look at the 11 incarnations of the Doctor, is Victoria, who traveled with the second Doctor and Jamie. And once again, I'd like to reference this scene. This is the only serial I have with Victoria in it, but it's Tomb of the Cybermen. And that, beautiful little moment when she's expressing her losses and her sadness, and the Doctor sits down with her and discusses his way of dealing with those things. A beautiful moment in Doctor Who history, for me personally, and I just love that. But that's the only time I've ever seen Victoria. So moving on to the third favorite of the second Doctor comes Zoe, and she is a little bundle of energy, at least to the way I remember it. One of the funny, more notable moments comes from the invasion, one of the earlier episodes in it. I think this was a pretty long serial, maybe 7 or 8 episodes in length, but there's a little moment, if this is the one I'm remembering correctly, where they go looking for a scientist, and it turns out he moved or left or died or whatever it is, and rather than finding a scientist, they find the daughter of another scientist who is also a photographer. And so for a couple episodes, I think the first 2, we have her wanting to photograph Zoe in all these different, crazy outfits and hats and things like that. But I just think it's funny. It stands out to me being a somewhat off the wall sidetrack to a building mounting and what would effectively become one of the most memorable Doctor Who stories. Moving on to the third Doctor's companions. The first I would like to mention, even though he's not necessarily officially considered a companion, if you look at it in the somewhat limiting view that companions only can be people who traveled in the TARDIS, I completely disagree with this, and would like to mention, of course, Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. Again, the invasion, because I believe this is his second ever appearance in the character, as the second Doctor, is reintroduced to him. and surprised that he's there. Also, I'd like to mention the Inferno, or rather just Inferno, because of that whole trippy, alternate universe where he's more totalitarian and more dictator-ish, and it's ironic because you see the Brigadier as a very strong, noble man in our universe. With him in Inferno comes one of only 2 times I've ever seen companion Liz Shaw. It's very strange for me because I'm not really all that familiar with her in the normal universe with the limited amount of Doctor Who I've seen. So what I basically like to say there is, yet again, it's an interesting portrayal of this darker, more totalitarianistic vibe that you get from her. But it's also very interesting that she, out of everyone in the Mirror Universe, for lack of a better term, is the one that seems to be the most turned by the Doctor. I don't remember offhand if she actually does start to believe him or see validity in his words, but she's the first that shows the signs of potentially being turned to believe the Doctor again. Moving on from there, but sticking with the third Doctor, comes one of my favorite companions, Jo Grant. I'm not going to note a specific story with Jo, basically because all the ones I've seen I've loved, and I love really her exuberance in the wonders that the Doctor is showing her. And she's definitely one of the cuties. There's so many in Doctor Who history. Susan was the first, and all the way up through. But moving on, still sticking with the third Doctor, comes the debut of Sarah Jane Smith, probably the most known Doctor Who companion, most beloved, shall we say, in Doctor Who history. So much so that in the last few years, the actress Elizabeth Sladen has actually gotten her own spin-off series after a brief return in one of the more modern Doctor Who series. And, all around she's great. She was an investigative reporter, kind of a la Lois Lane, and definitely had a nose for news and suspicious goings-on, usually of the otherworldly nature. And the Doctor immediately sees this, and the interesting thing to note is she is one of the companions who actually saw the transition, the regeneration between, in this case, the third and fourth Doctors. She continues her journeys with Tom Baker's fourth Doctor for a little while, until she eventually leaves. And at some point after that, sticking with the fourth Doctor, 2 notable companions for me are Leela, firstly, who a favorite moment comes in the Talons of Weng Chiang, when I don't remember the specifics, but there's they're in a house and they're trying to look for the bad guys or something to that effect, and she's stalking around the room with her trusty dagger, and I think there's a little Chinese puppet that's alive and it's getting ready to attack her, something along those lines. Just a really sort of gothic horror-esque scene, and the depth and the darkness of the scene really, I remember the tension ramping up in this particular scene, and so that always stands out to me. Plus, down in the tunnels underground, fight with a giant rat, which just kind of skates the bizarre a little bit. But moving on from Leela, we go to 2 incarnations of the same Time Lady, Romana. And the first Romana, I only had the box set briefly that collected all of the first Romana's journeys with the Doctor. I can't remember the overarching title of it. I believe it may have been Key to Time, something to that effect. But the first thing that I want to mention with her, or rather the only thing I want to mention with her, the first incarnation, comes with the first time we ever meet her. The sort of cool and suave yet cocky nature with which she deals with the Doctor at first. Kind of a condescension in the way she talks to him.